This is where censorship is different from some of the things I talk about in my book, which are more general attacks on knowledge for political reasons. Sometimes censorship can be.
Richard, this is everybody's fantasy of an Oxford library. I mean, it's Inspector Morse, but no corpses. Can you just tell us a little bit about where we are and what its history is?
We're in Duke Humphreys Library, which is really the first expression of a university library that survives as a recognisable library building here in Oxford. Because in the middle of the 15th century, Humphrey, Duke of Gloucester, the brother of Henry V, for reasons we don't really know, made a magnificent gift of books, cutting-edge knowledge from Renaissance Italy, and they came to be put on shelves in this room.
And are they still here?
Well, sadly not, because this is also the site of the first great destruction of knowledge in the university. During the Reformation of the 16th century, the books on the shelves that had been given by Duke Humphrey and by others became the object of the ire of the reformers and were destroyed.
Because it seems now terribly calm, as if no one would dare do anything naughty to any of these books. But it's not just, I think, that the original Duke Humphrey collection got torched, but libraries are always the object of people's anger, of conflict. You go back to the Library of Alexandria, and I know in your book you say that it really died because of underfunding, which I think is a message for all of us. But our image is of people violently destroying knowledge. Our libraries are contested places.
They certainly are. Throughout history, there's been examples of libraries and archives, organised bodies of knowledge, being the targets of attack for a whole variety of reasons: religious, political, cultural. And at the same time, libraries and archives have developed ways of preserving knowledge. And I think it's that kind of tension that I find most interesting. How have we as society organised ourselves to keep information available and accessible, to pass it on from one generation to the next? And what does that mean for society? And I think this is a great place to be having this conversation, because right here, this is where some of it happened in our own university here in Oxford.
But it makes libraries seem to me a kind of an excitingly dangerous place to be. It isn't. It isn't a place where time expired ideas go to die, carefully looked after by nice librarians. It's a place which is really, really edgy because what you've got on the shelves is incendiary, actually, and that, I suppose, still goes on. Libraries are still places of conflict about what we should read and what knowledge is.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things which, as a librarian, has frustrated me all throughout my career, is that there is a kind of stereotype of the library being a place with shh and, quiet and concentration, and, sort of bad behaviour is kind of, frowned upon, which of course, to some extent those things are true.
I've been told off more times than I can count.
And I'm sure for very good reason. But at the same time, the books are on the shelves, the process of acquiring books, the process of storing knowledge and making sure that it survives. One of my predecessors, risked his life in the late 17th century to preserve books of Milton's that had been given by Milton to his friend Bodley's librarian when it was okay to do that. And then suddenly the politics change and copies of Milton's books are burned in the quadrangle outside the library. But my predecessor hid them. He removed the entry from the catalogue and he hid the volume so that... and I think one of the things that inspires me in my professional life is the examples through history where librarians have striven to keep that dangerous knowledge so that it can be used.
Because it's powerful.
And I think that sort of power is forgotten.
But are there individual political problems now, 21st century? Do you have to grapple with questions, for example, of whether some books shouldn't be easily accessible, for example.
Yeah, no, there are examples like that all the time. And I think there are, sometimes it comes from our own readers, from students who may feel that, it's not appropriate to have a certain book. Sometimes it's legal issues to do with, changing attitudes to, say, pornography. So, libraries like the Bodleian used to have separate classes of pornography. It was called Phi. And these were the bits which the librarians were most keen to, have a look at. And in a previous job, it was the bit where the library staff used to break into the, sometimes into the stacks.
To have a peek. But now, how do you deal with the student who says, I don't want you to make available the work of, say, Holocaust deniers. I don't want Mein Kampf easily available. What do you say?
I mean, I think we have to face the facts that it's incredibly important to be presented with these ideas in order to refute them.
Libraries are vulnerable, aren't they? Even now, you don't have to go back to the Library of Alexandria to see that they can be destroyed as well as preserved.
I mean, I think right now, libraries are being attacked in Erdogan's Turkey. Libraries which contain books by one of his political opponents have had those books removed and destroyed. And this is something which, in living memory, we've seen so many libraries and archives attacked. Going back to the Holocaust, where there were tens of millions of books.
The British colonial authorities were horribly efficient at destroying their archives.
We have nothing to be proud of in our experience in, moving away from the former colonies, where, as you say, British colonial officials destroyed uncomfortable truths in the archives and physically removed some of them to the UK, as we found in 2011 with the Mau Mau rebellion archives from Kenya. We're marking this year, sadly, the massacre at Srebrenica, only 25 years ago. And what is less well known there is that the Serbs tried to eradicate all record of Muslim land ownership in Bosnia by attacking provincial archives. We're in the city where the removal of Cecil Rhodes's statue from Oriel College has been such a kind of contested issue, and the allegations that if that happens, history is being erased. Well, I'll tell you what erasure of history is. It's the wiping out of archives in Bosnia in the 1990s, in Yemen right now, where the Zaidi community are having their libraries attacked deliberately. In Iraq, we've seen it again through ISIS destroying libraries and archives as well. So it's all around us at the moment.
I mean, in some ways, the Library Plus Archive is not only a place of exciting and difficult ideas, it's also about rights and truths and sounds old-fashioned, facts.
Yes.
Can be preserved.
Absolutely. Facts which enable transparency of decision-making. It means about the authenticity of decision-making. It means about good government, because their decisions are able to be seen and scrutinised, and those who make decisions can be held to account. And I think that's something which has become, in the last period, such a problem, where so many of these decisions are being made outside of the realm of, if you like, traditional record keeping in social media or in other parts of the digital space. How can we be sure what our elected officials were deciding, and can we hold them to account?
So it's a dangerous space, but it's a safe space for having an argument within, because the material all around you is controversial and difficult, and the library is a place where you can face up to that.
I think that's the way to look at it, and I think you can call those books up and you can come to your own conclusions. And I think you have to have the ability to address a difficult past, just as times may change. We have the archive of Cecil Rhodes here.
Yeah.
And I think, the way those bodies of knowledge have been viewed over time change. But the fact that they're preserved allow for those different interpretations.
But if you think about change, I mean, some of this discussion might seem a bit old-fashioned, because if you're to think about creating the library of the future, and you think about where knowledge now is, we'd be awful dinosaurs if we thought that knowledge was just to be found in books.
This is one which my profession has been grappling with for 20 or 30 years with increasing intensity. And I think one of the things which I find that we are in danger as society, the world running away from us in terms of knowledge, is that shift to digital, and in particular, the world of data. Yeah. And I think the preservation of that has become a pressing societal problem that libraries have to address.
Do you do that in the bod?
We do it in the bod. So we work with the other legal deposit libraries in the UK and in Ireland to preserve the UK World Wide Web. All of the UK's web domain is archived.
Are my tweets in your database?
Tweets aren't necessarily in our database because social media, but I think they should be. Now, the Library of Congress at one point started an arrangement with Twitter to archive Twitter, but they've actually given up because the task is so huge. Yeah. And I think it's the scale of the world of data that we now live and interact with every nanosecond of the day. And I think it's that which has become the problem that we have to address as a society. And one of the ways of being able to understand that world is by preserving that data.
So in 100 years' time, I fetch up, my descendants, not me, fetch up in Duke Humphrey Library.
Yeah.
What will they discover? A load of digital archives.
They will discover digital archives, absolutely. But they will hopefully still be able to access, the papyrus from Oxyrhynchus, the parchment from the medieval libraries of Europe, the paperbacks of, George Orwell published in the 1940s and 50s. But also they will be able to access, huge bodies of data and be able to use new scholarly techniques to analyse that and to understand what the world was like. And I hope that we'll be able to, we're already trying to put that material in the hands of scholars today so that we can understand what is going on around us right now, because I think it's a real issue. There's so much data that we are creating ourselves that is being harvested by the big tech companies, what Timothy Garton-Ash calls the private superpowers. And society needs to understand, partly because we're giving that data for free.
Well, I'm looking forward to all these future research students who are going to be doing PhDs, DPhils on President Trump's deleted tweets, which I'm sure are safe somewhere.
They most certainly are.
An exciting or terrifying future. Thank you, Richard.